Many families are concerned about their finances and about whether they can afford to give their children a quality education. Some say that home education is only for the rich. Is it possible to provide your child with a quality education for less than the cost of attending a public school? My guests are Adéle Breedt and Marita Green. They are both veteran home educators. Adele's 3 sons have gone on to study at university. Marita has 7 children. The eldest is studying at university, and the second eldest is a professional cyclist and theology student. The younger ones are in their high school, primary school, and preschool years. Adele and Marita both work to contribute to the family finances. Adele, how did you do this?
To start with, we didn't really invest in a box curriculum. I think that's one way we managed to save money. We really only spent money on maths. And when I chose maths curriculum, I chose material that was non-consumable, meaning I could reuse it for many children. And that was about it. I think that's the only thing that we really spent money on was maths, and then an internet connection. We've always had internet, and that's a huge resource and help. As far as language goes, we read aloud, and we were a bookie family. I love books, and we've always collected a lot of books, so we did have a lot, but the library was another fantastic source. And so I want to encourage parents to really consider using their local libraries if they need more books. And then another way that we saved was by choosing to buy second-hand curriculum. You don't have to buy everything new. There's a huge market out there for second-hand curriculum. There's a huge market for second-hand read-aloud books. And yeah, that was another way we saved. I just want to think. The final thing is that we used gifts whenever we got money for birthdays or Christmas, or whenever parents or grandparents asked what they could buy us, we would make suggestions that we could use in school. So whenever we got extra money for things like that, we bought puzzles, we bought construction toys. I find construction toys really last and are very well worth the money. And then obviously books to read. So if you invest in a library, if you can, and otherwise use free resources like your public library and an internet connection, you can basically homeschool. I just want to add one other thing. Leonard van Ooststrom's, this just came to mind when I was working through this, told about a family, or it was actually just a mom, that homeschooled her son using just the Bible. She did everything from the Bible. She used it for everything. She read to him. They used it for language, they used it for maths, and then they just lived life. And the educational department actually found out about her and wanted to have him tested because they were concerned that he wasn't up to grade. And they got an educational psychologist from UNISA to test him, and he was way above grade. And all she used was her Bible.
Marita, you're still doing it. How do you do it?
Well, when we started out this journey, we didn't do it because we didn't set it out to do it on a tight budget. It just happens that education is better suited to not just throw money at it. So that's how we actually became more invested in education that is not necessarily invested in money. For us, education is the drawing out of the potential that is within the child. So that means that you first of all give them the tools for learning, which is reading, writing, and maths, and afterwards you inspire them. And that we do through reading lots of books. Like Adele said, we read a lot to our children, about an hour a day. We read from various books, just books that will inspire them. And then with the tools that they've got where they can read for themselves and the inspiration that they have, they are basically teaching themselves beyond what I have found schools would be able to teach. They go far beyond what I could teach them. So this is basically how we do it. We use resources. I find as well that the resources that are available is mostly the classical books. Most of them are at a very good cost at secondhand bookstores. I hardly find them actually available in in any other place to buy. So secondhand bookstores are the place to actually get hold of them, which makes it very cheap. And of course, they can also, you can use them for every other child after that. So what we did do is you invest in a good maths curriculum. You invest in to teach them just reading and writing with readers. And that is basically it. And you use it for child after child after child after child. So we invest in the beginning, and the investment afterwards is very little. So that is how we did it, and how continue to do it. And it works great for us.
A question that just came to mind now. When you both started out with home education, the internet also basically just started. All the resources weren't available like we have them today. So yeah, do you find it's easier to home educate now, or was it slightly easier a while back?
I can just start. I'm obviously not home educating anymore. I've got a cottage school now. But I do find that nowadays, most the books that Marita was referring to that you can find in your secondhand bookstores are available online now, even as audiobooks. All copyright books that are older than a certain age are available for free. That's one thing that has come up. YouTube has grown tremendously since it basically started out when my boys were teens, and we used it extensively. There are amazing tutorials on YouTube that are available for free. So yes, back in the day, we did not have that. Back in the day, we used to communicate by email. We had email groups, chat groups. Marita was on that with me back early days. Today, there is actually so much support even for the homeschool mom online. She doesn't even need to really even invest in the homeschool helps books that are available or that we bought in the early days to get into this whole thing. So if you're really tight, if you just can get an internet connection that is maybe uncapped and not too slow, you should be fine. You should be able to homeschool with that alone. But it doesn't mean that you need to go with an on-school or what do you call it, an online schooling program. I really don't recommend that. As a rule, it works for some children, works for some families, but there's so much more to homeschooling than doing that and working through texts that someone else has decided you need to follow. But yes, things have changed, you're right.
Let me just add this, there is now, I think back then, because we had less resources available, it was actually easier to pick from them, because with too much resources, one becomes so overwhelmed that it is more of a hindrance than a help, I find. So if I would be able to give advice now, I would say just stick to something simple. And as Leonard van Oostrum long ago used to say, pick the cheapest thing and just stick with it in the beginning until you find your feet, because it is overwhelming what is available right now. One can't do it all. There are only 24 hours in a day. It's impossible. That's what I would like to add to that.
In groups, we often see the question, is it possible to home educate while working from home? And if you don't have the finances to afford a domestic worker? Marita, are you going to go first?
In the beginning, we did have a domestic helper, to just because I did not quite know how I was going to manage it all. But I found through the years, as the children grow up, we are all working together. So it has actually become easier for us to, as a family, to keep the house running. At the moment, we don't have one. I also work in the afternoons, and we don't need one. Children, when they're about age 13, 14, they are able to run a house completely by themselves. So they would be able to cook the food, prepare the food, even do baking, do the gardening, do all the washing. Every child knows how to do this. So it actually becomes a part of life. They know how a house runs, which I find is great.
How do you manage work and home education?
Okay, I did have a domestic servant, but I think that's also what Marita is saying is true. The chores become part of their schooling. And that was quite a mind shift for us when we started homeschooling, because I think especially as South Africans, we're very, very spoilt with our domestic help. So we very quickly picked up that the kids could actually learn a lot of skills through doing chores. So that really helps. So if you do not have domestic help, what you really have to do is realize that you're not doing school while you're busy tidying up the house and getting things organized and sorted. You are teaching very, very important life skills. You're even teaching things like gross motor and fine motor and all those, and color sorting and counting, and it all can be brought into chores. As they set tables, as they pack dishwashers, as they sort washing. It is all educational. Life is educational. And I think that's the first mind shift you have to make. So you can do it without domestic help, and the children helping you with chores is part of their school. The other thing is I worked from home as well to bring in a second income to try and supplement our income. And I envied the moms that didn't have to do that. When we used to meet on Fridays at support group, and if they could just, and they were just talking about their days and how their weeks went, I really envied them. But it taught me a lot of skills as well. And the only tip I'd like to give people out there to do this is to try and separate work from school time. I found it really difficult to be taking calls when I'm trying to focus on maths with a child. So I really had to be quite strict with my clients that they were only allowed to phone after a certain time and to keep work out of school time. That was the one thing. And the other was for me I really had to concentrate on being present with my children when I was teaching, especially if I had some stressful thing that had to be sorted out work-wise. And I often found that my mind would wander and I would become impatient with my children because it was like, I need you to finish, I need you to get on with this, I have important stuff to do. And it really, I had to concentrate and realize that there's nothing more important than my children's schooling, and the client can wait. So it is a bit of a mind shift thing that you've got to go through, and you've got to just get yourself prepared mentally to work and to school. And yeah, then it's very doable.
What are the things that families unintentionally waste money on? Okay, Marita's gonna go first.
I find that there are two things that families unintentionally waste money on. The first thing is toys. We think that we have to supply endless amount of toys to educate our children. It is unnecessary, it is burdensome. That is in the end, all you want to do is just clear your house of all the clutter of toys that you're continually falling over, not because they don't pack away, but because they unpack so much. So I find that they don't need, if you invest in a set of good toys that won't just fall apart. Lego, for instance, is a very good thing to invest in. That helps a lot. The other thing is curriculums. I find that, and we did the same in the beginning. We bought a curriculum because this is the way we started out. And after 8 months, you realize this thing is not working for you. And even though you started very excited into this journey, you know it's not working. And then you look for the next curriculum. And after 8 months into that curriculum, you find this thing is also not working, and you go into the next one. So I've met many moms that would be able to do, they've bought about 10 curriculums. They actually had them all. And it was wasteful. And I think the simple reason is just because they didn't realize that the child is the curriculum. What you want to do is you want to draw the potential out of the child. You don't want to always fill them with information. And as soon as a person makes that mind shift, now it becomes easy. And now the curriculums just start to work for you and not you for the curriculum. And we don't need so many of them. Those two things I find is the biggest money wasters that there are.
I'd like to add, if I can, when it comes to curriculum, yes, that is a big money waster. I feel you don't need a curriculum provider. We never used a curriculum provider. If you do need extra support, we felt that a tutor, especially high school, talking Cambridge, ICSE and AS levels, we found tutors were better value for money than curriculum providers were. They did not offer the support that they promised on their websites. As much as a tutor could offer, you get more bang for your buck if you use a tutor. The other one is, yes, I agree with the box curriculum. Box curriculums help you to find your feet initially if you really need to, but it's a huge expense. And then if you do choose curricula, as we chose maths, you need two things, I feel. Firstly, understand your child's learning style, what approach you want to use to teach maths. We chose a hands-on approach. So we were only looking at curricula that offered a hands-on approach. We did not even look at anything computer-based or anything textbook-based. That was the first criteria that had to be met for me to spend money on that curriculum. And then the other one is, if you're searching for some other extracurricular, for instance, you're looking for something for English or whatever, you need to know what you want to achieve. What are you needing to improve? Are you wanting to teach your child to read? Are you wanting to teach your child the alphabet and the phonic sounds? Are you wanting to teach your child to write? Are you wanting to teach your child poetry? Once you sort of have an idea of what your goal is, what you're trying to achieve, then it's easy to choose your tool. But if you just randomly select a whole toolbox of tools, it gets very overwhelming, as Marita said earlier. So I believe that's your starting point. To save money on curricula, when you do purchase curricula, is know what you want to achieve with that curricula. The next thing that I also feel people sometimes or can save money on, I'm not saying you're wasting money on it, but you can save money on printing. I think that's another area where people often have far too many worksheets, far too many photocopies. And even when it comes to working through old past papers, we did that when we were preparing for Cambridge exams. We had to work through a whole lot of past papers that were all on the computer. My boys were quite able, and they chose to work with them electronically. In other words, we would download the paper, but they would work from the screen and then work on pieces of paper and write out the answers. So you don't need to print all those hundreds of past papers to be able to work on that.
What about a matric qualification? You've mentioned Cambridge, there's GED. Is it possible to do a matric qualification when you have a tight budget?
Yes, you can, obviously. There are various options. At this point, GED seems to be your cheapest option and your simplest option. But obviously you need to know what you're going in for, why you've chosen the GED besides the financial aspect. If you do choose the GED, it at this point does not give you a bachelor pass matric, but there are ways around this. In other words, your child can do a national certificate or a diploma, and that will open the doors for varsity. So if for financial reasons you can only go with the GED, then it doesn't really limit your child's options, as long as you're creative about it and see the other ways to get to university, if university is the end goal. University, however, is not the end goal for all children, and not all children need a bachelor pass, and not all children even need a matric. So that's a chat for another day. But at the moment, I would say your answer is the GED. The last thing I just want to add is that when we started homeschooling, which is now, I think, 25 years ago, the GED wasn't an option. At that point, there were different options to what they are today. And so when I started out with my toddlers, I was told not to worry about the end, the final, the destination, because it would change. And so maybe I want to say that as well. If you're starting out with little people, don't worry about where you're going to, what the final matric, whatever is going to be, because it will change. And you just focus on what you need to do today, and you'll get there. The doors will always be there. We will always have doors open to us to be able to get our children to where they need to get.
Marita, do you want to add something?
I can maybe just add, it is possible to do like Adéle says, the GED at this point is probably the cheapest, but there are about 5 different options at this point. When we started out, there were 2 options. When my daughter did the GED and went to university only with the GED, and she's doing extremely well as well at university, but that door closed within a month. So one can't start out and think that you can't choose a curriculum now for a matric option in 12 years' time, because by the time you get there, it might not be available anymore. And as it seems as the world moves on now, it might not even be necessary to have a matric. I see there are already universities that think that a matric is unnecessary. For instance, MIT, they don't even look at matrics anymore, especially for homeschoolers, because it's become irrelevant. So the best thing is to actually just educate your child. By the time you get to where you need to be, we don't know what the options will be, and we don't know how expensive it will be. But we do know that if we give our children a good education, if you draw that potential out that is in the child, now anything becomes possible.
I must say, I take comfort in the fact that my son's only turning 11, so I still have a couple of years before I think about that. Okay, if your child wants to participate in extramurals like music lessons, art lessons, sport, is it possible as a home educator, or if you have a tight budget? What was your experience, or what would you give as advice?
Don't have money, you can get all the friends, the homeschooling friends in the neighborhood to come and play at your house, to do sports together. I know there are some families that have drawn children together to start soccer clubs and so on. It is all possible, because you know, if you have a little bit of ingenuity, you can do anything. So it is possible in both ways. One is to save money on other stuff, so you have money left over for extramural activities, or to start your own.
I want to add that, yes, we had dads that put together a soccer club for us, and it was quite amazing when my boys were younger. When they became older, they had to work for what they wanted to do. So my one child had a homeschooling friend that was a keen mountain biker, and he wanted to join in. And the friend was very talented. He actually did really well in local meets and so on. But we knew our son's not really that good at it, but we encouraged him to do it because it's a good physical exercise. But he had to find ways to earn that money to buy his bike. We contributed. He also used birthday money, but he had to furthermore get money. You know, it's not all your responsibility as a parent to hand everything to them on a silver platter. In fact, that's not a good idea at all. So children need to take responsibility for their extramurals as well. They need to help make it happen by earning the necessary money. And our other son, that's a physio now, he started a home gym. He used YouTube to learn about exercise and diet and nutrition, and he started with every bit of money that he earned. He would buy a little bit extra, and he built up a big home gym. Well, not big, but big for a home gym, and especially for a home gym built by a teen. Quite an extensive home gym, and he got his brothers involved. He tried to get us involved. We weren't as keen to participate, but yeah, and this has led to his eventual career. This interest and this extramural type activity. He's our most sporty child. Our other children are thankfully not that sporty. But and he had to make a plan, because we live out in the country. We do not even live in a city where he could participate in any club sports. I know if you live in Joburg or in Cape Town or Pretoria, you're blessed, because there are clubs. I don't know what the clubs charge. I'm oblivious, but that is one option for a homeschooler to participate in extramurals, and specifically in sport and team sport. But we live out on a small holding in the rural Eastern Cape, and he had to make a plan, and his plan was a home gym. But we didn't hand it all to him. He worked for it, and and I think what, you know, the contributing to the expense also made it something that he didn't just give up on after a month or 2 or 3, when he realized it's not as easy as I thought. And then I just want to mention another one is music is another one of our extramural, if you want to call it, activities. Again, living in a small town, we don't have a lot of music teachers, etc. But my husband loves music, and he plays a few instruments. So he was able to share his knowledge that he had, and you might be able to draw from your community, you might be able to draw from the person that lives next door. They might do it out of the goodness out of their heart, and maybe your child can participate or help by doing some gardening or something like that, to repay the person for their time. But yes, my husband taught our kids, and furthermore, YouTube was amazing. Once they learned everything they could from my husband, they moved on to YouTube, and YouTube took them further. So that's another source for extramural type activities.
One thing this lockdown has also taught us is online learning. My son takes guitar lessons, and we also now moved to using WhatsApp call or the Zoom platform. And that opens it up to have excellent teachers, even in rural communities. Yeah, that's the questions I had for you. If you have any closing remarks, you can please give them now. But otherwise, I want to thank you for your advice and your time.
I think I just want to say one other thing. It's a question you didn't specifically ask, but what type of homeschooling approach suits this working on a shoestring approach. So, you know, there are various approaches, and I think that's one of the first things you have to learn about when you are interested in homeschooling, is actually do your research on what the different approaches are. But the one that really leans towards this is when you use obviously eclectic approach, where you're choosing mix and matching, choosing this and that, etc. But it's also when you realize that learning is a lifestyle. It's something that happens all the time, and when you use every opportunity as a learning opportunity, I think if you can see that in your everyday life, you can homeschool really cheaply. Also, what that involves is speaking and talking all the time. You talk while you're busy with your children, while you're busy doing chores, while you're outside together, while you're having tea, while you're reading. Just talking all the time and imparting knowledge is part of this approach, and it doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost money to do any of that. So that's the approach I would recommend if you want to homeschool on a shoestring budget. Is forget about the curriculums, forget about all the textbooks, forget about all the workbooks, forget about all those things, and really just, as Marita says, you pull out the potential, you draw the potential out of every child, you follow the child, is what Dr. Maria Montessori said, and you just live life very intentionally, and you parent very purposely. Everything you teach your child is done with purpose. And yeah, that's my closing remark.
The only other thing that I would add to that is that it is very important. Parental involvement is the most important thing for home education. So it is not a good idea normally to stick a child in front of a curriculum and think that they will thrive. They won't. Some will, but I think the majority won't. As long as the parent is involved, the child will thrive. Even if you only have a Bible to use and a pen and paper to teach your child, as long as you are involved, your child will be set for a very good education. That's my closing remark. Thank you very much, Anelle.